atomic heart. Is it Worthabuy? Let's read the words of the developer. In a mad and sublime utopian world, take part in explosive encounters. Adapt your fighting style to each opponent. Use your environment and upgrade your equipment to fulfill your mission. If you want to reach the truth, you will have to pay in blood. Let's start with the graphical options, guys. There's a few, as you would expect from a big game like this. You can twiddle and tweak them to get the best out of your graphics card. I played this in 1080p for the vast majority of the time, locked at 60 frames a second purely for editing reasons. It makes rendering a lot faster. But here's a test on a group of enemies in 1080p with everything on, no capped frames. You can see that it's stonking along over 100 frames a second most of the time. The frame count is in the top left corner of the screen, by the way. So you can see for yourself when the shit hits the fan, it runs really, really well. I'm not saying there's no frame drops, there is, but there's none that you notice, but that obviously frames fluctuate when you're playing a game, when you're going into action or when you're running around. So you can see that in 1080p. I'll switch it to 1440p now, same settings, everything on kind of ultra, and surprisingly it wasn't really that much different. It is a bit worse, obviously. It drops down more into the 80s. But there's not a massive difference in the frames between the 1080p and the 1440p. I haven't tested it on anything higher than that because I still have povy little monitors and a 2080 RTX, and this is running with 32 gig of RAM on an i9 3.4 gig. So that gives you an idea. It's considering the kind of shit we get now from especially the AAA games being badly optimized. This runs really well. I'm very happy with it. Now, a lot of people are comparing this to BioShock. I would say that it's more like Prey with a very mild sprinkling of Half-Life. That's how I would set this up. It's certainly a very immersive game. The story's reasonable as well. It's not a really bad story. It's all voiced in American or Russian if you want. It's a Russian game. Yeah, it's got a decent story. Basically, the robots were all nice and peaceful, and they've taken over and started, it's a Skynet, guys. They have decided to turn on their owners. Now, I can't tell you anything else about the story because I'm under an NDA, because I did get a key of the developer, so thank you for that. The game essentially has you as a well-trained kind of soldier going in there to sort things out and rescue people from what's going on and to get to the bottom of it. And it takes twists and turns, the story. Let's just keep it at that. It's got some pretty hilarious characters in it as well. But the good thing about this game, the very good thing about this game is the people in command actually look like they would be the people in command. Not like all the horse shit we get from most AAA games. This one is not like that at all. It's kind of much more believable in the kind of people that you run into. So, full marks for that. The gameplay loop works like this. The more things you kill, the more things you can loot. Search everywhere, get as much loot as you can. Loot means power. Take the loot back to an upgrade station, upgrade your glove, which is where you get your kind of superhuman powers from, and upgrade all your weapons. You can augment them and you can upgrade yourself as well. So that's the loop. Loot, upgrade, kill. Works great. You start off with just a melee weapon, and the melee combat in this is not great at all, and that's because the FOV is far too narrow. I guess that's because it's on consoles, but why the hell is there no FOV slider? Why don't we have this game desperately needs a FOV slider. The amount of times I lose track of the actual enemy that I'm attacking because he's just gone off the side of my screen, it's just really hard. I much prefer freezing them and putting a shotgun to their face and pulling the trigger. That's the way to do it. You can also synergize with the weapons as well. So for example, you can augment your melee weapon to build up energy every time you use it, and then you can switch to an energy weapon that will use the energy that you've built up to shoot the enemies with. There's lots of stuff like that in the game. Personally, I think the best way is to be the Emperor of Star Wars with a shotgun and a machine gun. And you just go in and you just raise them up into the air and they're flailing away in midair, then you crash them down, open up with machine guns, freeze them with frost, get out an axe, smack them in the face, switch to an even bigger gun and blow them into guys, the combat in this, once you start getting towards mid-game, and well, past mid-game I would say, it's just nuts. The arsenal, the amount of ways you've got to kill things is just hilarious. Just freezing them, electrocuting them, making them fly up in the air. You can blow them away with rocket launch. You've got a gun called a Dominator, which is just crazy. It uses all your energy up. So you have to be careful of your energy usage, but you can augment your energy to get bigger energy bars and get it to recharge faster. All of that requires loot, and there is a shit ton of loot in this game. You've got to go looking everywhere for it. Now, here's a big gripe. The game relies on X. It relies on X, guys. X-ray vision.
What the fuck is X-ray vision? X-ray vision. X. I said that's not fun. You need X-ray. I told you with X-ray vision. X-ray vision. X. I said that's not fun.
Not very good.
X-ray vision.
You need X-ray vision. In this game, you need X-ray vision because if you don't, well, you can't complete it if you don't use X-ray vision, because there are certain things where you absolutely have to use the scanning mode. Now, I'm all for scanning mode in games where you're looking for wires through walls and things, but why does it have to show up all the enemies? You see, guys, when I'm playing this, I've tried not to use X-ray vision at all until I've cleared a complete area. Once I've cleared a complete area of enemies, I'll then go back and use the X-ray vision to actually get the rest of the loot that you miss, because there is so much loot around. It's so easy to miss loot. And because loot is so valuable in this, because the more loot you get, the more deadly you become, it's well worth your time to go back. If you're like me and you hate knowing where the enemies are, please do this when you're playing. Don't use X-ray vision until you've cleared an area, and make sure you've cleared it, because these can come back to life when repair bots come in. Make sure you get rid of all the repair bots as well, because there are some great moments when you'll walk around a corner and you'll just see a really nasty killer bot there, and it's you shit yourself. It's like, oh my goodness, it's the amount of times I've been ambushed, because the developers have really handcrafted this game very well. They've put enemies in great positions where you're just not expecting them. Honestly, guys, sometimes when you're doing locks on a door, an enemy will come up behind you. They've got like doors in walls that you can't open. If you ever see a door on a wall that won't open, it's probably a capsule room for where there's robots, and they'll come out when you trigger something. It's got a lot of triggers, this game, so be careful. And you know what? They're very silent, some of them. They don't make a noise. Some of them do. Obviously, they're clanky, but the humanoid ones generally are silent, and they come up and you shit yourself, guys. It's great. But X-ray vision would ruin all that. So, yeah, X-ray vision, no, it should never be in a game. I mean, unless you're playing like some kind of highly futuristic person. And I guess you are with this glove. You've got this glove that talks to you called Charles. He's the thing that you upgrade, Charles, this glove, and he does all the kind of electric and freezy stuff. There's also Nora. I've got to mention Nora, guys. You have save game points scattered around the level. There's plenty of them, so you needn't worry. And there's an upgrade machine next to one, which is called Nora. And, well, it's an upgrade machine, but Nora's infiltrated a few of them. And she is this absolute nympho. And he's a glitch.
Get rid of that glove, handsome. You don't need him anymore now that you've got me. I'll service you however you want. Got a sword? A massive sword? Thrust it deep into my socket so I can make it sturdier and sharper.
Nora can upgrade weapons and equipment, as well as manufacture new items from blueprints. To do this, provide the repair vendor with the resources you will undoubtedly find as you rummage through the entire area.
You can fill me with whatever you want, big guy. Insert your axe. I'll give you the time of your life.
I've laughed out loud at her. She is hilarious. In fact, the game is hilarious. Even the protagonist says some hilarious things. Unfortunately, I'd say 60% of the stuff he says is cringy that you would expect from a little kid. But the other 40%, some of them are just hilarious, the things that he says. So it is what it is. Let's get to some of the bad things about it. The AI pathfinding at times is atrocious. Sometimes they just literally won't come in buildings, and you can just massacre them on the doorstep of a building, and they just can't pathfind into a building. It's a pretty nasty bug, that, to be honest with you. It only seems to happen when you're in the outside areas. The driving's not great. It's really not great, the driving. It's very twitchy on the keyboard. There's not a lot of driving, to be honest. The world can be a bit barren at places as well. But saying that, when you get into the big complexes, it's great. It's very linear in the complexes, but it is good. There's lots of puzzles. If you don't like puzzles, don't even touch this game. There's loads of puzzles in this game where you have to complete to get through. They're not hard. I mean, they're not hard, guys. But if you absolutely hate puzzles, you might find that a problem. Some of them I had to think on for about 10 minutes to get it right, because there's lots of different puzzles, there's lots of different blocks to pick for doors, but that's pretty easy. There's like mini games all over the place, and there's a lot of retro games that you'll have to come across to get certain things done, and some of them are bloody annoying. They'll get you swearing at the screen because they are quite hard. The game overall on medium, sort of normal setting, is quite a hard game. Because of the fact that you have a narrow field of view and stuff, and some of the enemies, some of the boss fights are pretty tough. There's problems with the key binds as well. If you don't use WASD, you can bind all your keys. Unfortunately, F is quite hard bound in certain situations, so I've had to, I think, twice in the game switch back to WASD to do certain things, and one of them happened to be a boss fight. Because in this particular boss fight, I don't want to show the boss fight because it's really good, and I don't want you to even know when it's coming, because it's really, really good. But the boss will grab you, and you have to press a key on your keyboard. Now it'll be one of your movement keys. Now the game thinks you're using WASD, and I'm not. I'm using TGFH, and then it'll flash up a key that you have to press. I hate that shit. And you literally get, I think it's not even a second to press it. So you have to be quick. Oh, Q, press W, press E, S, space. And playing TGFH, I couldn't do it, so I had to switch to a side, and then it took me about 8 attempts to kill the boss, because it was just, probably 10. I'm going to say 10 attempts to kill it. Simply because when he grabbed me, I couldn't hit that key because I'm not used to them keys. So it was a nightmare, guys. It's a pretty good first-person shooter, this, guys. I've been looking for stuff like this since Prey, and we haven't really had anything on this level, so it is nice to get this. It just needs some work doing on the AI and on the pathfinding and on the fixing the VSync bug, because the screen tearing's horrible. You'll have to put VSync on pretty much on your graphics card settings. That's what I've had to do until they fix it. And it was working fine on Friday, but it just wasn't working at all on Sunday. So I'm assuming there's been some kind of update that's broken. So there you go, guys. That's Atomic Heart. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. It would have got more if it had been fixed in certain areas, but it's still a really enjoyable game.